On January 7th, 2025, 2 fires ignited around Los Angeles, and within hours erased more than 16,000 structures from the map. By the time the embers cooled, the insured losses had climbed to $40 billion, making these the most expensive wildfires in human history. Visual. Type chart data glitch value. 40. Unit $1 billion insured losses. Context. Most expensive wildfires in human history. Duration. But 1 year later, the survivors are still waiting. Tens of thousands of families, holding paper policies they paid into for decades, are being delayed, underpaid, and some cases flatly denied. And the document that finally exposed what one insurer was doing behind closed doors. A county investigation opened November of last year, and what it found has changed the story entirely. Because before the lawyers arrived, before the investigation, there was a man named Mark Johnson, and he waited 9 months for a single phone call. Chapter: Paradise Inches Ashes. To understand the betrayal, you first have to understand what was lost. Pacific Palisades is not an ordinary neighborhood. Tucked between the Santa Monica Mountains and the Pacific Ocean, it holds roughly 9,000 residential units, with a median home value of $3.1 million, according to Atom data. These were not just houses. For many families, they represented 3 generations of work, of saving, of belief inches the California dream. Further inland, beneath the San Gabriel Mountains, sat Altadena, older, quieter, and historically one of the few places where working-class black families in Los Angeles had been allowed to buy and pass down property since the 1960s. Visual. Type location, pin location. Altadena, California, the United States. Coordinates 34, 1897, 118, 1347, duration. These were homes filled with photo albums, wedding rings stored inches dresser drawers, school yearbooks, inches attic boxes, things insurance can pay for, but never replace. The residents did everything they were supposed to do. They paid their premiums. Many paid them for 40, 50, 60 years without ever filing a claim. They believed they were protected. But somewhere inches the boardrooms of America's largest insurers, a calculation had already been made, and when the wind picked up on the night of January 7th, that calculation would be tested. Chapter: The Night It Burned. The wind that night reached hurricane force. It rolled down from the high desert through canyons that hadn't seen meaningful rain in months. By the time the first reports came in, the Palisades fire was already uncontrollable. The Palisades blaze alone would burn nearly 60 square miles across Los Angeles County, destroying more than 18,000 structures. The Eaton Fire ignited the same evening above Altadena. Together, they would take 29 lives and burn over 37,000 acres before crews could contain them. Visual. Type conspiracy. Board nodes. Palisades. Fire Jan 7, 2025. Eaton Fire Jan 7, 2025. State Farm. Claims denied. County Counsel. Investigation Nov 2025. Sabi owed 22. 4B paid. Duration. Data. Type timeline title. The 72 hours that changed everything. Data. Type stat value. 16,000 unit structures context. Destroyed inches 72 hours. Dramatic true. By dawn on January 10th, entire neighborhoods existed only inches memory. Mark Johnson stood inches front of what had been his home. The chimney was still standing. Nothing else was. He did what every policyholder is told to do. He called his insurance company. He called State Farm. What happened over the next 9 months would become a pattern repeated thousands of times across the burn zone. It would attract the attention of the Los Angeles County Council, and it would raise a question that nobody in the insurance industry seems willing to answer. If $40 billion was owed, where exactly was it going? Chapter: What They Found. As of January 14th, 2026, insurers had paid out more than $22.4 billion inches claims. That sounds like a lot. until you realize the total insured losses may approach $40 billion. Data. Type SAR comparison label A. Ode to survivors. Claim of $40 billion. Label, actually paid. Claim at $22.40 billion. That gap, nearly $18 billion, is where the survivors are living, or rather, where they aren't. Joy Chen directs the Eaton Fire Survivors Network. Inch's testimony reported by OPB. She said something that should not be true, Inch's modern America. She said that whether a family was recovering or not depended largely on which insurance company they were with, not how much they paid, not what their policy said, just which company. Mark Johnson's case became one of the most documented. NPR reported that he waited 9 months for State Farm to pay his claim. 9 months. He told reporters he was nearly forced to leave money on the table to accept less than he was owed, just to get assurance the company would back his rebuild. Data. Type stat value. Time 9 unit, months context. Mark Johnson waited for State Farm payment, dramatic and true. That's not a delay. That's a strategy. And we know it's a strategy because, Inch's November of 2025, the Los Angeles County Council opened a formal investigation into State Farm. According to NPR's reporting, the investigation was launched following repeated reports that the company had delayed, underpaid, and denied valid insurance claims. Data. Type or terminal. Readout lines. Case. LA County v. State Farm. Status. Active investigation. Allegations. Delay, underpay. Deny opened. November 2025. But here's where it gets darker. California Representative John Garamendi, who served 2 terms as the state's insurance commissioner, told NPR something chilling. He said, quote, "The first commandment of the insurance industry is to pay as little, as late as possible." This wasn't a politician throwing a punch. This was a former regulator describing what he had watched the industry do for decades. Data. Type stat value. 574,000 unit dollars. Context. Average replacement cost per Eaton Fire home. Dramatic true. According to Milliman, the average estimated replacement cost for a destroyed home was $955,000 Inches Palisades and $574,000 Inches Eaton. Multiply that across 16,000 structures, and you understand why a company might prefer to stall. Consumer advocate Amy Bach put it plainly to OPB. She said insurers were, quote, bringing strategies to try to limit the pain they experience financially. The pain they experience, not the pain of the families sleeping Inch's trailers. And then there's the part of this story almost nobody is talking about. Chapter. The pattern. Because the Los Angeles fires are not the first time this has happened. They are part of a pattern stretching back through the Camp Fire, the Tubbs Fire, the Thomas Fire. Each time the same complaints. Each time the same delays. Each time the same companies. Data. Type conspiracy. Board nodes. 2017 Tubbs fire delays reported. 2018. Camp Fire underpayments. 2020 Glass Fire. Denials. 2025 Palisades Eaton. Investigation opened. What changed Inch's 2025 wasn't the behavior. It was the price tag. $40 billion is the largest single wildfire loss Inch's global history. And when the bill arrived, the strategy, the one Garamendi described, the one Bach documented, the one Mark Johnson lived through, was deployed at unprecedented scale. Think about what that means. The insurance system, the one Americans are legally required to buy into Inch's order to own a home, may not be designed to pay out at scale when scale is exactly what's coming. Every climate scientist NPR spoke to agrees. Fires of this magnitude are no longer unusual. They are the future. And if $40 billion is enough to trigger this kind of resistance, what happens at 80? At 120? Mark Johnson eventually got his payment. So did some of his neighbors. Many did not. The Los Angeles County investigation is ongoing. State Farm has not been formally charged with anything. The legal process will take years. Inches, the meantime, the Eaton Fire Survivors Network keeps a list. A list of families still inches trailers, still inches motels, still waiting on a check from a company they paid faithfully for decades. So, here's what I want you to think about. When you pay an insurance premium, you are not buying a service. You are buying a promise. And a promise is only as good as the company's willingness to keep it when keeping it costs them everything. 16,000 families learned, Inches January of 2025, exactly what their promise was worth. If this story disturbed you the way it should, subscribe and drop your theory Inches the comments. Was this delay deliberate? Was it negligent? Or was it something the industry has been quietly planning for years? Because the wind always comes back, and the next fire is already on its way.